Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile 2 video, and this time they finally fixed, not nerfed, fixed the Grim Feast interaction with Raging Spirits, or actually in general with any non-revivable minions, so that they no longer provide your energy shield remnants. And this means that the build is actually not dead. The build will actually still function, however, it's only if you're clearing and you're actually killing the enemies. Now, however, if you encounter a large set of enemies that you're not killing fast enough, you're going to have some troubles with this. And if you're fighting endgame bosses or single target boss fights, you're not going to have any of these shards being generated. So to solve this, we have a couple of other options. Now, obviously, the life stacking / block approach, which I know Kripparrian has been running, is a very solid approach to go for. But I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to be running this and have been running it on stream for the last couple of hours. And that is the mind over matter style. First and foremost, you will have this as your build enabling item. First, you'll level the build without this simple life stacking approach, but the build enabling item will be a Midnight Braid. This is because of the damage taken recouped as mana, allows you to take any damage you receive, a % of that will be recovered as mana for you over the next 8 seconds. We also have a couple of things on the tree, such as adverse growth, which will reduce the amount of life regeneration, but give you additional 20% of damage taken recouped as mana. And the high-end game anoint for your amulet will actually be this node here on the right-hand side called Pliable Flesh, which will take that 8% window, 8-second window, turn it into a 6-second window. However, this is very expensive, so what I would recommend before that is actually to grab this one. Full recovery, because we're using a support called Ablation. I'll talk about the gems in a bit, and that is going to take a little bit of your life away every now and then. And do keep in mind that your mana pool is not your entire life source. You also have your life pool itself as well, which we're going to cut in half in a bit. This will help you sustain that a little bit. It's very comfortable. However, current state of the game, I have this oiled, but it doesn't work. I'm going to spec this in the tree, which I have linked in the descriptions down below. This node is not spec'd in that tree, neither is this, because this does currently not work with Mind Over Matter with Eldritch Battery. This node simply doesn't do anything, but it's supposed to. So those two nodes you're supposed to have in your endgame tree, but for now, the link in the description will show you without those nodes. The rest of the tree is very generic. However, I will point out a major difference, and that is we're actually able to take minion resistances and max resistances, including the 3 resistance up here, which makes your minions have a ridiculous amount of defense. They are not dying. End of story. This includes tier 16 maps or endgame bosses. They are simply not dying. So they're sitting on a very comfortable amount of rest. Actually, didn't even bother bringing them higher on my Cold of Lightning because I've stopped at 78%, and they're more than fine. There I'm also having a little detail here is Whispers of Doom. This is something I explicitly am only using for endgame pinnacle bosses to use Enfeeble. So that's enough about this. This is the skill tree. I'll show it real quick here on the video. And look at the link in the descriptions below for the details, so you can look at that in a calm and orderly fashion. What I will say, though, is that you'll start with the Loyal Hound in Ascendancy, pick up Altered Flesh, put some pressure on that Chaos Rush, and then you grab Beta's Will for the Spirit. And the last one, which is currently bugged, I've been running Sanctum for a few hours now, still not able to get the last one, is going to be the Beta's Case for extra mana. However, I'm using jewels. So these jewels should be Sapphire jewels. If you want to push that extra resistances, you can have one of these with an elemental rest for your minions. Other than that, you're basically looking for minion damage, minion attack speed, mana recovery rate, and then you can have something like minion crit chance or something like that. It really doesn't matter. I even have 2 jewel sockets open because I don't have enough currency to buy them at the moment, but this is the skill tree that we're running, and it's been working out perfectly fine for us. This build is going to pack a ton of mana regen, and the gear was, I'm going to cover this before we go through the skills. It's pretty important with the scepters. With any minion build right now, you want to focus on minion levels on every slot. That includes your helmet, your amulet, as well as your weapon. And other than that, just spirit. And then after that, if you can get minion damage, that's great. I have this on my amulet, for example, plus 2 level minions. Keep in mind that you will benefit from both energy shield as well as mana, as well as life. And this is because we're turning all of our damage is going on mana before our life pool, and we're using Eldritch Battery so that all of our energy shield is turned into mana. And the weighted value between these is that you have an equal weighted value between energy shield and mana. It's almost 1-to-1. So that means that you don't have to take full energy shield gear. You can actually have armor energy shield pieces and have a high life roll with a high mana roll instead of going for a pure energy shield piece with exclusively only energy shield. So it opens up a lot of options in terms of gearing to make it much easier for you to find upgrades that is equally strong in the end game. However, once this node works, I will say that you're going to want to have a pure energy shield chest piece, but the node currently doesn't work at all. So enough about that. Gear-wise, like I said, just life mana or life energy shield or mana energy shield, whichever mix you can find. Get levels of minion skills on amulet, helmet, and weapon. Get your resistances sorted. That includes your body armor, which is the one that I would recommend having a pure energy shield piece with spirit preferably. Shield, however, I will point out that having the modifier increased block chance is really, really attractive. That is because of this node right here called Wide Barrier, and that puts me at currently 57% chance to block, and the patch that came in now makes us able to block attacks that is around us, not just in front of us, which allows us to essentially, every time we block, take 0 damage from that block, which is incredibly strong, and it allows us to mitigate tons of the incoming damage, making clearing extremely comfortable. Boots, make sure you have movement speed. Again, life mana, energy shield, resistances, attributes helps a lot. Gloves, exactly the same thing. Rings, exactly the same thing. If you find something with mana regen, that is actually helpful and preferable to help that sustaining of your mana pool. And that's kind of it. Charm, I'm currently using Chaos Rest, mainly because I don't have Chaos Rest capped. Once I do, I will very likely do a freeze immunity or a poison immunity, since poison actually bypasses this entire shenanigan and does direct damage to your life pool. So do keep that in mind. Skill-wise, before we do skills, I will say the venoms or the poisons or the draughts, whatever you want to call them, that you get through the campaign, start with the first one as mana regen, I believe it is, and the second one I chose chaos resistance. Skill-wise, basically there's a couple of different options you can do, but the base scepter should be a warrior skeletons, in which I basically have complete utility options. Debuffing supports, first I have meat shield, just keep them alive. They are just there to be sacrificed. And then I have ruthless, so if they do get some hits off, they will just help build stun up, build. And then build up stun, Jesus Christ. And maim to reduce the enemy's evasion and slow enemies. This is if they happen to attack before I sacrifice their asses. Raise shield I don't use ever. And then we have the summon infernal hellhound, in which I'm using fire exposure, strip away, magnified effect, and then I have any sort of debuffing skills. In this case, I have culling strike. You can have other things like blind or whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can even have breaking armor and stuff like that. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I probably would do splinter, which is the breaking armor approach, since our SRS or raiding spirit minions, as they're called in PoE 2, essentially will do 30% of the damage as physical. Bone Offering is one of the 2 offerings which we're using because of this node up here, allowing us to have 40% increased minion damage when we have 2 offerings. I don't really use this much, but it's versus bosses I do. It helps keep our minions alive, plus I get that extra damage boost. I'm linking Font of Mana to help with mana recovery. However, the radius in this is very, very, very tiny. So it would only be if you are standing next to that radius, which is separated from the radius that the Bone Offering has. A little annoying, but it is what it is. Running Font of Blood, this allows us to have life recovery. This is mainly for our minion survivability, but you know, if you happen to be close to it, it's kind of nice actually. And then you have Inspiration to make this cost less mana. Skeletal Arsonist, in order of importance, we're going to run Scattershot, Martial Tempo, then Fire Infusion, and then Immolate, as well as Fire Penetration. Now, keep in mind, Immolate is going to be working consistently because our dog is permanently igniting everything in its vicinity. However, both of these support gems does not show up in the tooltip, which I'm currently having at 3,400 almost. But if I unequip this, it still won't show me in the tooltip that it is working because they're conditional, and the other one is penetration based on the enemy's defenses. Just keep that in mind when you're looking at it. Enfeeble is the extra curse. If you were to decide to use it, you can go Temporal Chains, or honestly, just completely skip it. It's preferential. I have Focus Curse in here to erupt it faster. And then we have Skeletal Cleric. Honestly, the Cleric has a last gasp on here. Sometimes this guy runs into melee range because he's actually brain dead, which is kind of logical because it's a skeleton and, you know, he doesn't have a brain. But, yeah. So this brainless Skeletal Cleric is kind of useless. But if you take it away and you can get another Arsonist, you would actually do that because you have so much defenses for your minions, you don't need him. Actually don't need him. So if you're able to get another Arsonist, and by having 0 clerics, you will do that. If you happen to be in a position that I'm in, that I have 19 spirit left over, or in this case, I only need 16, just add a cleric. It doesn't matter. It just helps a little bit. It's extremely rare that you would ever have use of this. But if you do, it's nice. The other curse, which is our main curse, is Flammability, which I'm linking with Ritualistic Curse, which is a preferential support, and I'm using Heightened Curse to increase the efficiency of it. Radiant Spirits, however, make sure you right-click it to activate it. This is something that is very important to level up. There are a lot of people who have been asking me if they should level up the Radiant Spirits, and yes, you should absolutely do so. It increases the accuracy they have, the life they have, the damage they do, but you don't see that in-game because the tooltip doesn't show that. Support gems in order of efficiency is Feeding Frenzy, Fire Mastery, Minion Mastery for the levels, as well as Elemental Focus and Primal Armament. Both of these two last ones only apply to 70% of their damage, since they do 100% physical damage, and 70% of that is converted to fire. And this is also why debuffing minion approaches like Splinter will work very well on your dog, because the 30% remaining damage is physical from these guys to ramp that small portion damage up a little bit. But it's also a very small damage source of all your damage in general, because your main source of damage will come from the Infernalist. The Arsonist, actually. The main damage offering is Pain Offering skill, which we're using with Persistence to make sure that it lasts as long as possible. And in here we have Font of Rage, which generates rage to enemies, allies within radius. This is basically just giving them more damage. And then we have Expanse to increase the radius of this, but puts it on a 6-second cooldown. But the ability is going to be ready to be used before this cooldown is off, so you don't have to worry. And then we have Ablation in here. This is why this ability takes some of our life away, but this increases the efficiency of our offering. Then I have Blink. This has been a bit of a interesting topic. A lot of people have been questioning why I'm reserving Spirit for this. This is why. That mobility. Play with this for about 15 minutes in-game, and then tell me you don't want to use this. I guess it's preferential, but I think it's stupid not to. It's insanely effective. In here, we're supporting it with Second Wind as well as Ingenuity. Second Wind allows us to use it twice before the long cooldown starts, which we are then trying to minimize by using Ingenuity support. And then we have the Clarity as a third one to give us a mana regeneration, as this is a passive effect in the background, giving us that extra mana regen to help us with our EHP. Last and not least, this is our actual spam ability. This is Flame Wall. We're using Fortress, and people are questioning why we use this, because it lowers the hit damage. I'll explain that in a bit. And we're also using Arcane Tempo for increased cast speed, and we have mobility, so make it not slow us down as much when we're moving. It's a preferential thing, but I think it definitely is worth it. Now, the reason we're using Fortress is for two things, or actually a couple more, but two main ones. The way Flame Wall works is that projectiles that goes through the Flame Wall gets added projectile added fire damage. This is also why you want to level the Flame Wall. Don't keep it on low level. And your Arsonist wants to use this. With Fortress, you can place this on a target, and the Flame Wall will be around the enemy, and therefore you can guarantee that every projectile is about to hit the boss will first go through the Flame Wall. That's beneficial damage output right there. If I unequip this Fortress, it does not lower that specific component of the skill. So you do not lose anything from running Fortress. There's a couple of other things you can do, like Unleash, and you can have Spell Cascade. I don't think Unleash actually works with it anymore, or at all. But you can have a couple of different variations. I prefer Fortress. It's very comfortable. So that's how I play it. And that basically covers the build guide for this build. I've been having a lot of success with it so far. It builds function very smoothly, and I'll be continuing to play this on stream for a bit more, and before I even consider doing another build, maybe even another class. We'll see. Right now, the subathon is currently live and ongoing on Twitch, so I'll see you there in the chat. If you have any questions, let me know. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Stay safe. Keep rocking.